Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talk Openly. My name is Daniel, and I'm here with my friend Jack, as usual, for the show. And we have a very, very, very special guest with us here tonight. We have Patty Marcotte. Hi, Patty.
Hey.
Hi,
Welcome,
Patty.
Hi.
welcome to
Thank you for
Talk.
inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. It's such a treat to have you. So, for those who don't know Patty, I'll give you a little bit of an introduction. So, Patty is a good friend of mine and Jack's. She's a Lions Roar Dharma Center Sangha member for a long time. She's also has a tremendous amount of experience and has a heartful dedication in many different areas that sort of touch human lives. So I'll give you a little rundown on that. So she's a mom, and for I think almost 2 decades, I think can correct me if I'm wrong there, Patty. Patty's been a speech therapist for children in elementary schools, and most of them have special needs. And for many, many years, she's devoted time to volunteering with individuals who are suffering from mental illness. And that work has led to a position on the board of the Middle Way Health Foundation, which is an organization that I hope that Patty will talk about a little bit more. It's dedicated to supporting poor and low income individuals struggling with mental illness and their families. She's also the Dharma secretary for Lions Roar, and she's one of Lama Yeshe Jinpa's personal attendants. There's probably a whole lot more, but I think that's probably a fine introduction. So there we have it. Welcome, Patty.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So,
So you
yeah.
you have a lot of experience working with challenging people. It seems like it's sort of your life mission in some sense. Whether you invited it or not, I don't know. That's what you were looking for when you started. But regardless, you throughout, whether you're talking about young students or uh, uh, patients who are looking for therapy or as a mom, right? Of course, you have challenges across the board. And you've been a practitioner, a Buddhist practitioner for many years too, right?
Yes. I can hardly remember when I wasn't, to be honest. I mean, of course, um, actually, in a way, I came into it late, so that's not true. But it just feels like it's just one day turns into another, and then before you know it, many years have gone by. But when I was raising my kids, I was not a Buddhist practitioner. I wasn't one until I was in my 40s, and now I'm in my 60s. So,
I'm
yeah.
kind of curious, given that you have experience with young children um, without being a practitioner, and then you have experience working with young children as a practitioner.
Yeah.
If you can, is there like can you tell the difference in the way that you relate to kids um, pre and post?
Yeah. You know, I actually feel I have a greater capacity to be with very difficult children than my own children were more typical. I did do foster care for a while, and I adopted my youngest child, who's now 25. But before I was a practitioner, I was, uh, trying to do service. I think um, trying to heal myself in a way through giving to my own children and children that I brought into my home through foster care. But I can't sometimes was oftentimes actually feeling quite uh, overwhelmed actually because um, I because love isn't enough really in a way, even though that love is the most important thing, but you also need wisdom. And I'm talking not, we in our tradition, wisdom, we talk about all the time just in terms of like emptiness, that very powerful word, which means interdependence. But it's also just kind of wisdom in a practical sense of just learning from all these people that have come into my life through my Buddhist practice, especially my teacher, Lama Jinpa. And he just uh, has taught me, you know, to see the whole person without even, it's just kind of something that's just happened without like a specific direction to do such a thing. Just, I see the whole person, everything included. So that when I was younger, a bad person, a good person was just that. But now I've integrated it without trying. And I just know that everybody's everything. And those little children that are in front of me are, I'm able to handle more because I'm able, uh, because I think I'm seeing them more as they really are. Whereas
I,
before I would be like, more black and white without realizing it.
We kind of make them concrete, like that is their identity. It's solid. It's not going to change. That's kind of how we tend to think of people. But it sounds like the Dharma has really helped you see, like, oh, there's all these different causes and conditions that have kind of created what this person is presenting as right now, which
Yes.
is, I imagine, it makes things a lot easier when you're working with people.
Just, I think just naturally just have more patience when you really understand the truth that, uh, I could use a lot of uh, uh, kind of Buddhist language that would sound pretty good. But the truth is, it's just kind of like, just really, just from the heart, like my own heart has been so deeply touched by the training that we call it training, which seems kind of inadequate, really. But just these heart-opening experiences that I've received from life and from a teacher. I didn't, the parts of myself that I reject have been brought to the surface. And that because of that, I'm able to handle more. Because before I wasn't aware of my own wounds. So that becomes projected onto others. So now, because I'm more aware of my own insecurity, my own neurosis, and delusional thinking, because I'm more aware of it in me, I'm able to see in others their own. I don't know if this is making sense.
it is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you just about that. If bringing to the surface your own neuroses or what have you, and working with them and seeing yourself as a complete person rather than as a
Mhm.
concrete, you know, solid person. If that process alone isn't sufficient for being able to see other people in the same light.
Yeah, I think so. I think it just naturally has kind of happens with over time with practice because, like in our tradition, we're just not hiding out. We might try, sometimes our our hiding outness gets kind of stripped away but very drastically. But other times it's just kind of
Yeah.
gradual, like sandpaper. But
Mm.
I've had both experiences, like for example, today, like I was talking, to be honest, I'll just bring this in because I think it's kind of interesting. I was talking about somebody else and about their issues. And I made myself sound kind of beyond it without really thinking about it. Like I didn't think that I was doing that. But then later, the very thing that I had said about that person was brought to my attention about me in a very drastic way. And it really set me back. But, you can see when you really get this deep understanding of your own thing, not, and you got to work with it because feel shame around it, then working with it and looking for it when in our tradition we don't find it, but yet we look and we look and we investigate. And then by doing that, there's something is kind of opens up. That makes me so I can work with kids who, I'm just saying this for an example, very simple example, kind of vague maybe, but just when you can really be genuine with yourself, you have the capacity to really be present for somebody who needs to do the same thing. And they can see in your eyes that
Yeah.
you understand.
Yeah. It's like a heart-to-heart connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
I every day I'm with kids who've been through a lot and some not so much. They're very, I don't guess I can't know for sure, but I've met some kids that have really, and then they they just feel like they don't act the same in my room that they do in other places. And I have to be careful with that because the truth is I need to help them to act okay in a wide variety of settings. And in my room, they're a different person. And so I want to be able to take that same gentle quality, that's who they really are, into environments where it's expectations are higher. That's my goal, to teach them how to say no. But they don't know how to say no without being violent. And so saying no is more important than saying yes as far as function. Like if you can say no in a way that's appropriate, then your world opens up. That's so these kids, just to our topic of being difficult, are very difficult for their teachers. They don't know how to say no without maybe disrupting the whole class. So my job is to find ways they can say no, where where or can be some kind of negotiating. In the life we don't get to negotiate that much, but I try to help them to kind of put off things so that they can function in a regular class, because that means their life will be better.
You're in a way, I can't help but think that you're giving what you've received, in the sense that our Sangha is a safe place for us to practice and train together, you know, including being able to be vulnerable, be transparent, and allow some of those insecurities, doubts,
Yeah.
neuroses to surface. And it's safe, right? That's one of the most important things about it, is it's okay to do this and be ourselves and see ourselves there.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you do the same thing in your classroom when you're working with your students. You give them a safe place and you help them, you give them little tools to help them in their training and help them to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds that sounds wonderful. I want to be your student, Patty.
Oh, oh, I don't want to make myself, I just really want, I really, I don't want to make too much of myself.
Yeah.
I, I'm, and I also want to make sure that it's in the record that I'm a speech therapy assistant.
Yeah.
And that's very different. Like I don't do diagnosis, for example. I don't have what's called IEP. Some people wouldn't know what that means anyway. All I do, my speech therapist does all that, the one I'm my supervisor, and I give therapy. That's what I do. I'm known for that. And some people, they think I'm a speech therapist because that's all they see me just doing that, but I'm not. That takes a lot more education than I have. I have a 2-year degree, so that's important to. I have a really good situation because I have a 2-year degree that allows me to do something very meaningful. Really grateful for that.
It
Yeah.
sounds to me like it's not just the verbal aspect of speech. It's not just that form of communication that you're working with the students on. It seems like it's all communication across the board. And
Yeah,
I
it
can't
is.
help but think, children that, within at such a young age are incredibly formative. Those are the formative years, and they're sensitive to input from other people. And most of our experience in young life is being impressed upon by other people, telling us who we are and what we believe and what the world's all about and how we're supposed to be in it. And there's very little just allowing a person, a being to unfold and see what they are. And I can't help but think about something Thich Nhat Hanh had said, which is that, ultimately what most people want is this loving presence, the ability to be with another person who simply lets them be, where there is this safe space. There's awareness, there's somebody who's witnessing them and what's happening with them, but not necessarily being, not being messed with, right? Which is what so many people, not just kids, right? I mean, adults, this happens across the board. And I can't help but think that maybe one of the secrets to working with challenging people then is in fact more of that presence.
I think so. Well, just moving away from my job with kids into, I do a grief group once a week, and I don't, sometimes that's difficult to be honest. And we're just learning what do people need in such a situation, and what people need is a place to hear themselves, not really to hear me. I need to create a container so they can hear themselves. That's how they get better. Or I don't know if it's the right language either. Just by hearing themselves, this is where the healing occurs.
Mm-hmm.
So with difficult people, I still am very much a beginner. I think I don't know, maybe die a beginner. But what I have found the best when I'm able to is to not react. Even it doesn't mean I don't react inside, because some words just hit me, like a knife. But if I have a minute not to, that choice through practice, there's a gap. It's like like a little light bulb. Oh, if I say this, they'll say that, and then and you kind of know the pattern of that language and communication with certain people. Like before Dharma practice, I would try to resolve things through, like, if we just had this one conversation and you'll understand what I think, then that's what we needed. And I would chase after them if they had a hard time, like call them, like text them, and all sorts of just trying to get this one conversation where it all be understood. And I'm learning so late, like mostly it's my job to understand their perspective. That's most powerful. I'd like them to understand mine too, but if I understand their perspective, I have a much better chance to really have to understand them.
Absolutely.
Even if it seems like they're not very nice, because sometimes people aren't, but I just really can, I wonder why they're like that, like a curiosity. Like, I wonder, take it personal. What's happening?
You've had to do a lot of work on not becoming defensive, not like that impulse to just kind of no, you have to understand me, like it, and that feels just so natural. It's like, well, of course I'm gonna do that. Of course I'm gonna try and get my point across. So I'm just curious, how do you, in the moment when you're working with someone or talking with someone who's not understanding you, or maybe being a little bit kind of bullying or whatever it is, how do you regulate yourself so that you can kind of learn what's going on for them?
Well, sometimes I'm not successful.
Sure. Yeah, of
But
course.
but when I am, I notice I never regret that I don't say something. I never go, oh, why did I not say something? But however, I have had many a time when I regret, because there's not always a open door, like if somebody's made a decision about whatever I've said, or you know there just can be this cycle of revenge.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, you just have to know, what can I do and what can't I do? At least not harm, like the Dalai Lama says. At least maybe that's all, maybe it's the best I can do.
Yeah.
But I have to be like, sometimes our teacher, Lama Jimpa, he says, I said, oh, I think I need to step back. I say that. I think I need to step back from this. I think I'm a trigger for whoever. I think my presence isn't contributing to the good of the whole. I mean, I've really had to say that occasionally, and I and that's just kind of. And he said, no, 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 you need to step in. The center's where it's safe. And how many times he said that, and I just feel like that when he says it, I'm like, oh, why does he keep me close? I'm the worst. I'm always I don't, like, because he has to tell me things so many times. It's a scary.
I mean, me too. Yeah. It's not just you, Patty. It's not just, yeah.
What does that mean, that the center is where it's safe?
It's kind of like, I take it like instead of, there's a lot of levels to that, to be honest. The center is, like, I think most profoundly, is the center in yourself. Like, you go in, you're like, what is really happening here? What is really happening? Who's attacking me, and who is who are they, and who am I? And then when feelings arise, looking at those, like, what is really going on here? That's the center to me. Like that question that has no answer. It has an answer, but it's really not. It's an unfindable answer. This might sound really odd to somebody who's not a practitioner of Buddhism, but that's one way to think of center. Like, to just really stop and say, what am I protecting? And then, what is that? What is that? Like a curiosity. That investigation can open things up. And then the other kind of center is the center where, instead of staying home, there's no safety in home with the covers over your head.
Mm-hmm.
Get tormented by the enemy is not outside, it's inside. So when the center is like going into the scary places, and then recognizing that the scariness is in you, it's not out there. That's why some people go in the same situation with ease. And I go in there, I'm feeling like so scared. But is it, what's the difference? It's inside me, something I have to work with. There's no getting, the other thing is not getting better and better, like this steady climb up this mountain, and you're just getting better and better and better and better. Instead, it's just kind of waking up to all of it. It's all included, like that. That's the center.
How do you, thank you for that, Patty. When you're in this center like that, how do you tell the difference between, there's this mode, and this is at least true for me, where there's this deep desire to help another person who appears to be struggling with something. And I think I know what they need, right? And I want to reach in there and I want to fix it. I want to tell them what they need to do to make it all better, or whatever, or resolve the issue for them. And I've learned that that's, in most cases, not helpful, and usually backfires and causes resistance and self-defense and all of that. And that in most cases that was wrong anyway. But how do you, if you're in the intention, if you're intentionally wanting to help or heal another person, how do you differentiate between what will work, and what is this just our own ego and our own desire to be sort of vindicated or whatever.
I think it can be kind of tricky. Honestly, I need help sometimes. I need a friend, you know, to think that and I think maybe we could just simply ask them, would, like real humbly, like, I would like to offer some suggestions, but they're just, I want you to take them in the light that they're being offered, like that I'm not sure if this is best for you. But maybe if you're receptive, I could share them, and if not, it's okay. But I just want you to know that I'm here for you, and if you would like some support in that way, if you just want to just be together and distract yourselves with a good movie, I'm here that way. Just kind of let them lead the way, and then like in my case, I really like feedback. Like, Patty, it's really not like that. That really helps me. I've had friends say, Patty, it's not like that. Are you sure or they'll say, are you sure it's like that? It really helps, like, but that's me, and somebody else, they may be not like, I want to push for that. That's the thing about me taking the other person's perspective. Everyone's so different. I might be calling saying, I'm really suffering here, and this is what happened. That's kind of making it real. Like, but at the same time, that's sometimes right where I'm at, and I kind of need that sort of help. So I think just following the lead of the person, and probably not using the word fix, because,
Yeah.
you know, you know, I don't know.
Yeah,
I like that
thank
idea. I was going to just say, I like the idea of asking permission, that, like, of course we have ideas, we've been living in the world, and, and we've had difficulties. And so it's like, oh, I've been there, like I can help, like I've got the idea. But yeah, so often people just want to be listened to. And so, I've always found that, if I can gently kind of like ask permission, like you did, that there's a little bit more of an opening to hearing the suggestion,
Yeah,
whether they, take the advice or not. But I think that just kind of helps soften any defensiveness, that might arise by saying like, oh, you should do it this way.
yeah,
like it. What you guys are saying is really kind of neat, because that fixing, or whatever you want to call it, that attempt to sort of reach out, is a form of touching, right? It's like you're touching the sort of personal space, the psychological space or emotional space of the other person. And I think what I hear you guys saying is, hey, before you touch somebody personally like that, you should get consent.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Otherwise, it could be construed as an act of aggression, which makes sense why people get defensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ah, that's a brilliant insight.
Sometimes, the other thing I've done that, like with difficult people, or I can, we all have these people where they're not really a big fan of Patty, and they just don't have that same language like that. So I guess going back to that thing of just really trying to understand their language and match it up. Like, they might not want to be talking about feelings at all, you know, might not be a Buddhist practitioner. Most of the people I know are not. So I just kind of match them like where they're at, and just kind of uh, like with my students, I'm always saying, "Oh, thank you for telling. I I want to know more," like that.
Yeah.
Like with difficult people, like it's kind of they don't expect that, especially if they're saying something that isn't that nice. That would be like, wow, and I've done this with my kids. I have 4 kids, and they're adults, and sometimes they're upset with me because I'm so busy. Mostly, that's one of their big complaints, and so I just validate them. Like, I need to know more. I want to know you. I want to know what's going on with you. Like, even in the hardest things. After one time I went with, it was a really powerful walk. I went with one of my kids for like a 2-hour walk at least. And in that was a very difficult walk for me because she kept complaining about all these things from the past that that what I did and didn't do. And I just realized this is a really important conversation. I just kept saying, please tell me more. I feel like this is important. I need to hear this. Just tell me more. And then eventually she just ran out. And it's not like this magic, oh, everything's perfect now, but it was just kind of, it just felt like after that, like not such a hardness around it, softness around, like there's so much of that hardness is just feeling misunderstood. So difficult people, they feel that you are willing to listen to things you don't agree with. That's just very powerful.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I find that uh I work with a lot of difficult people in my job. I work with people who are in, crisis or maybe had an overdose, times where people are really struggling. And I've noticed that a lot of times people will kind of enter a dynamic with me where it's like they're saying something where they want to get like a rise, like they're, kind of they want to see how I'm going to react, but whenever I can just meet that with like just like curiosity and maybe even a little bit of like humor and like,
Mhm.
oh, just yeah, tell me more about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so interesting how it just kind of like it disarms people in the best kind of way where they're just like, okay, now I feel like I can trust you a little bit. Like you're not gonna like you're safe for me to just be transparent about anything. And so that really helps. Yeah, just
Yeah.
just to listen and accept, you know, accept that people are going to be a little combative sometimes. And maybe it's not that they actually are that way, but they're just testing the waters a little bit, and seeing if you're a safe container for that.
I should tell you, as a student of Lama Jimpa and seeing him a lot, he told me something that at the time I'm like, was following me, probably complaining about one thing or another, and he's saying the difficult person is here, right here. I know we work with some, like in my case, I work with some students considered, they call it, I don't want to say too much about it because I'm not sure what they're allowed or not allowed to say, but they're just they're very traumatized. I think that's okay to say. And so then you could say, well, they're the difficult ones. What a difficult job and such things like that. But in regular life and my interaction with just people from all walks of life, um, in particular the challenging ones, it's just blown me away that I'm the difficult person. I'm like, I'm the difficult person. And I can think of all sorts of reasons why they're the difficult person. And then oftentimes I'll try it, not as much lately because I just can't do it without in the back of my mind going, I'm the difficult person. But
Yeah.
no, he won't let this Lama Jimpa will not let me off the hook.
That's good. That's good.
Like
It's hard.
martial arts.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you were talking about, both of you reminded me a lot of martial arts, like Aikido, for example, where it's about a skillful redirection of energy. That in many cases, people, the way that people use their energy or direct it is not helpful and it's hurting them. And then it meets with our own energy and we add that in. And now it's just heightened and it's really gets off kilter. And it makes me think, there's this momentum going like a spinning top. And if you get into the center of that, you're not adding to it. You're not
Yeah.
adding to that spin. Ah, that's good stuff. Patty, I know that you have Lama Jimpa is your main teacher, but um, probably along the way, some of the challenging people that you've had to deal with have been your teachers as well. I was wondering if there was any type of story or experience that you've had, not necessarily with a student, just difficult, challenging people where you felt like after working with them, you learned something where you were like, oh
Oh,
wow, okay.
yeah, all the time, all the time. Like any challenging person uh, has been my greatest teacher because it shows me really the truth of where I'm at on this path. Because I've met people that have been through incredible challenges. People that the word challenging doesn't describe it. It's so difficult.
Yeah.
They've seen, and it's unbelievable. I've met them. I've met them. In fact, years ago, before you were both at Lions Roar, I met a teacher that he wrote a book called Surviving the Dragon. His name was R.J. Rinpoche. He's been to our center many times, not recently because he's doing some kind of like oral recitation, the 84,000 verses. That takes 3 years to do,
Wow.
at least. But anyway, he wrote this book, Surviving the Dragon, that time period when Tibet was taken over by China in the late 50s. And he spent many years, and he was a political person. At the time, he was a monastic too, but he was considered, I think, like a kind of like a congressman sort of position in Tibet. And he's also considered Tsongkhapa's uncle. So I know in your case, you guys would know who that is. But he went through that and was in labor camp and must have seen just incredible suffering. And if you met him, just soft like a cloud. No, no hard edges, nothing but just. I just mentioned him. He just comes to my mind because I could mention many others actually that not necessarily Buddhist, but just have been through torn situations. Well, and then they come out uh, able to love and contribute and have peace. And when they're around, others feel peace. Their very nature heals just by being in the world with all of us. And they've been through unspeakable things, and yet uh, so they could listen. We kind of, when people have a kind of a hard edge, and we can say, well, they've been through this, they've been through that. No wonder, And in a way, when I first came to Lions Roar and I gave my first talk, I just was so scared. But my talk was a narrative about a story about my own history and childhood that was pretty sad, really. And it was just like something to explain why I have these issues, like that. But somebody that I've met who's gone through far more difficult challenges would have a different story. So I learned from sometimes when I'm discouraged, what I do, discouraged about difficult people, is I'll read about people who've been through very difficult times to help me realize it's possible to see it in a different way. And in our tradition, we transform the difficulty. Things have the potential to open us up in a way that only difficult things can, like that they call transforming this trauma into like a sweet sorrow, like with this love, what we call bodhicitta mixed, like this compassion. Like I saw a movie, I loved it so much. It was a movie, and I sent it to some friends. I might have sent it to you, I don't know, but I liked it so much. It was about this guy who lived in Hawaii and kind of left the society, and he was living like a hermit in Maui. And in that movie, there's so much to it, but he was a practitioner. And in that movie, he went swimming with, this is sort of off topic, but I just want to talk about being in touch. So he nearly died when swimming in the ocean because he got attacked by these minotaurs or man-o-wars, these kind of swimming animals that paralyze you. And so when he nearly died, he became he was in so much pain. In that moment, what happened is something opened up in him that brought him in touch with the pain of others. And because of that opening, he survived. That's what he believed. When he was telling the story, he couldn't even speak because it was so powerful. So I just mentioned that as the difficult things that we go through, whether it's difficult people or just difficult something very sad that's happened to us. It has the potential to bring about something very powerful and opening. There's a song by Leonard Cohen about, if you know about, the cracks. And those cracks, that's where the light comes. And I don't wish for anyone to suffer, ever. I wouldn't say, oh, you need to go through this, not like that. But everybody does suffer.
Yeah.
That's what happens with that. That's what we do with it.
Yeah, pain is oftentimes what connects us. Yeah. And I know for me too, pain is what brought me to the temple.
Yeah.
Like, I can't deny that, as much as it makes me angry sometimes to think about, because I was really angry, very angry at the time when I started coming to Lions Roar. And but it was that pain that brought me there, that brought me to, this wonderful community that cares about me.
It's that is very common story, actually, I think.
Mhm.
You guys have heard that, probably, that story, like I think it's in Shantideva, Bodhisattva Way of Life, where they say our enemy is a precious, precious teacher, our enemy. They say that's what's written in that book. It's so easy. And when we read these books, we're like, yes, that's the case, yes. But then when you're really going through it, where somebody may be unjust or something like that, or you feel they're unjust. That's what happened to me tonight. I'm like, oh no, that was just really hit me hard what happened. And then I'm like, no, this is it. This is when I'm needing to really make the practice real, not, it's easy when things are kind of like even or just a little bumpy. But when it's really hit you deep, or that's really important to just in that time and just use that for our practice. And you need to, I believe, friends. Of course, there's these people that go and spend all this time by themselves, so there's something to be said for that. But according to Dharma, it's essential to have that a teacher if you're really going to take it far.
Mm-hmm.
Can't psychologicalize this away if it's hitting you in that way. We can use our rational mind, and we even come across people who want to help us, and they try to say, well, they're just having a bad day, or these kind of explanations, but it's in our hearts. We can't really make this fit with our body. It doesn't work. That's why practice meditation so helpful. Meditate when things are good, meditate when things are difficult.
Yeah.
It's just like a commitment to yourself.
Yeah, and the practices that really help bring it down from an intellectual understanding and into the heart, because I also, I find that passage from Shantideva so powerful, and yet I think it still is somewhat intellectual. There's an intellectual understanding. And then it's the practice of Tonglen that really helps it kind of go down here, or like practicing medicine Buddha, where I imagine healing, going to every being, including my enemies. It's those kind of practices that help bring maybe the intellectual understanding down into the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of practices that help, I learned a term a while ago from Jack related to working with other people, especially challenging people. The word was resourcing. Um, how we how we sort of replenish our stock of energy and sort of get charged up. And I was curious if you have any practices or advice or anything along those lines about, how if you feel like your batteries have been depleted a bit through working with others, um, you know, uh, maybe something along the lines of what is popularly known as compassion fatigue. If you're running into something like that, do you have any particular practices or advice for recharging or not deplete or not getting depleted in the first place?
Well, I, I do, I, I sing mantras sometimes, like, I do that. I do mantras, and I do what's called guru yoga, and that's like when you are doing a prayer to remember your heart connection with your teacher. And these mantras, I do them because they make me because they're just really powerful to me. Like I do Guru Rinpoche mantra, and I do them with my friends sometimes. Yeah, I that's what I do. And then also, it just is really. I just started again, which I'm not sure. I get myself in these little things like, why did I start this again? I don't have time, but I started doing Tai Chi again.
Nice.
Yeah, these are things that I do. I think it's just, sometimes when I'm feeling really fragile, at least in my case, we're just kind of tempted to want to go look at our phone, watch TV, get on the phone, talking to somebody about what happened over and over, maybe one person after another. But really, just read a passage. Can't emphasize enough about how important it is to just meditate. And when that means a lot of things. That means a lot of things. So, just a very basic way, if somebody happen not to be Buddhist, if they just make a little space in your house where you can just be still, just make it a little beautiful place, with candles and flowers, just be there, be surprised. Just spending time like that, even just 10 minutes, can really help you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and how meditation can be, many different things. Like I remember, and I don't know if these are still doing it, but the walking meditation on Sundays at the temple, walking
Yeah,
meditation is so powerful, able to feel your body and the surrounding environment, it's everything. I love walking meditation.
yeah, no, we've been doing it with a combination of sitting meditation. We would just meditate for like very it might seem long, sometimes 12 minutes. We were doing 24, but then we have all different kinds of people showing up, and we don't want it to be where it's like another thing for people where they're just kind of feeling like it's a little too long for them. So just have 12. Meditate 12, walk, meditate 12, walk. If you have time, do another 12. It's just something somebody could do at home. So that's just like in our tradition, we use our just to be our centers really making a big effort to be inclusive. So meditating using our breath instead of visualization is very inclusive. You know, people don't have to be necessarily Buddhist to benefit from doing that.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, and I was curious too, you know, talking about temple, you know, sometimes we, as much as we want to create a harmonious environment with our Sangha brothers and sisters and siblings, we inevitably have conflict, you know, because it's just normal, you know, we have differences of opinion and whatnot. And I'm just curious, you know, what insights you have around resolving conflict with our Sangha siblings.
oh gosh, you know, sometimes I get really surprised when somebody I have a conflict with, like, says something nice to me. Oh, so they're so brave, you know, to take a chance. Just say something very neutral about something that has, like, maybe not going so direct, maybe going around. Like, you want, I'm gonna get some sparkling water. Do you want one too? You know, so that people can kind of say, you know, she is this kind of, Patty's kind of annoying, but she also likes to offer sparkling water. You know, like, to not go so direct.
Yeah.
You have time, we can talk later about, you know what we need to talk about. That I've done that before too. And that is obviously what maybe, you know, there's a place for that. But also I think you can build up this little bank account by doing some nice things. And then the trust level, which may be kind of low, be a little bit strengthened by, you know, she doesn't wish me any harm. She has her faults, but she doesn't wish me any harm. Kind of like that.
Yeah, sometimes I think people are kind of surprised, you know, because, you know, once a conflict happens, there's the expectation that all interactions just going to be negative. And
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be that way. It's like, oh, let's just go have some tea, or, you know, like it can we and that doesn't mean to be like disingenuous, but just literally that, you know, things aren't permanent. We don't have to make it solid. We can have conflict and still love each other. Which I think that truly is, you know, what family is all about, including Sangha families. So I love that idea.
I had for myself, you know, we make New Year's resolutions, which I don't usually, but I have this one where I I don't want to be like a Pollyanna, like, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't talk bad about anybody, and I used to, but now you know, like that's not real. But at the same time, I don't want to make people into something, you know, stick to the facts, you know. On this occasion, this happened, and like, why am I telling this person about this? Like, I need to look at that. What am I doing here? Is maybe they have something valuable to add, then this makes sense. But am I just telling them so that they'll join me in this way? I see that happens for me. I don't want to do that so much. I'm not perfect, which is a good thing. Otherwise, would have zero friends. I would like to try to at least, you know, be more honest with myself about that.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's a resolution of mine all the time, is a little bit more honesty with myself and others. Yeah, and kindness. Like you said, yeah.
Can't, you can't, no kind deed is wasted. Like sometimes people don't want to do a little thing because they think the problems are so big. But we know that, they have those movies, I can't even think, where they have one little thing they do and that there's a ripple effect, just a ripple. One, like I think of that when I go to the Starbucks, which I know is, Starbucks, but there's still people working there and I'm very kind to them and they, I think, maybe they don't get that enough. Like
Yeah.
I always say, I've never had such a good coffee. It's only
Yeah.
when you do it that it turns out so good. And they know that's not true because I say it every time to them. But that's just a very good example because those are things we can all do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. There are all these stories that I've heard from people who have felt really, marginalized and downtrodden, um, and feeling like they didn't belong, and maybe were looking for a severe way to get out of it all. And how just a smile or a kind word or a very small deed, like somebody giving them some sparkly water, really just changed the course for them. Like it helped them to see, like, oh, it's not everybody and it's not all the time. Sometimes people can be nice and kind and
Yeah.
pleasant. Yeah.
Yeah, just I like to say things Rinpoche says, like I tell my students, I'm like, whenever I see them for a long time now, I always say, oh, now I'm having the best of days. I didn't know you were gonna come. It's a Monday and you came to school. I almost didn't, but then I thought you might come and then I came. I say that all day long. And they're like, am I really your favorite? I go, yes, you are my favorite. And then they go, so and so said they're your favorite too. And I go, yeah. I go, you're right. Okay, they are my favorite as well. I don't try to. I go, they are my favorite. I go, it's just that's how I feel. Like that's how I feel. I hope it's okay that I like you so much. And what are they gonna say? It's just a little kid, but they like that. They like that. I go, I feel. I just tell them. I go, say, look at my hair. I'm old, but because you're here, I feel young. I tell them stuff. And
so
that's,
sweet.
it is kind of maybe people say that's a little syrupy, but you know what? They don't, those kids take it in. They don't mind. They
Yeah,
don't.
for sure. Oh, Patty, well, this has been such a lovely conversation. It flew
Oh,
by for me. I wish we could talk for another hour.
oh.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, you're welcome.
So good, Patty. I just got to say, as someone who has benefited from your kindness and been inspired by uh, your behavior and the way that you are in this world, I just think you're fantastic, exactly the way you are. and now I'm really having a good day.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I say. I always tell them that. Not, no, I just was kind of low energy till you showed up. It's like, oh, they believe it though. So that's so nice. We can all do that.
We can all do that.
We can
Yeah.
all do that.
Well, thank you,
Okay.
Patty.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Patty.
guys.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, Daniel. Take care.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.